Hi, welcome to this brief demonstration of how the rPath Cloud Engine 6.5 and the open source Puppet technology can be used together in an integrated fashion to make it really easy to deploy, configure, and maintain your application solutions. I'm going to start by creating a new project using the rPath Cloud Engine UI. In this particular case, I'm going to pick a project that incorporates both a middleware stack based on the Apache web server and also components from the CentOS 6 operating system. In this particular example, I want to include the Apache web server. I also want to include my application. So I'm going to simply use the built-in wizard to upload an application package. In addition to Apache and my application, I also want to use a Puppet module. Now, I just happen to have an Apache configuration module here. It consists of a manifest, consists of a template, and also consists of some default configuration values that help drive the packaging process. This enables it to be really easily, say, produced out of my continuous integration or other source control system and fed into the entire Cloud Engine assembly process. So I'm going to grab a tarball of those artifacts, upload it to the Cloud Engine, and then I can provide additional metadata that is used to drive the automatic integrated use of this particular Puppet module. In particular, one thing I can do is I can define a series of parameter value slots, if you will, properties, that can be configured at runtime. And this allows the module to be easily reused by anybody else that may want to use it in their environment. In fact, what the rPath Cloud Engine will do is it will take these configuration properties, enable you to set or get them via the API and the user interface, and will also ensure that the underlying factor system used by Puppet will actually expose those values at runtime for the purpose of configuring the system. So we're going to build that new Puppet module as a package under version control, put it in the rPath Cloud Engine repository, and then assemble it into a system. So what does this Puppet module look like? Well, it looks just like you would expect. There's a standard init.pp file that contains the kind of declarations you would use for any standard Puppet module. And in this particular example, it's specifying the use of a template, an herb template, along with ensuring that the Apache service itself is actually running. Just for fun, I'm going to add a couple of other Puppet modules to my system so that I can configure things like the message of the day, perhaps, and also just some generic base configuration that perhaps will manage the firewall on the system, etc. So what have I done so far? I've defined a project based on the CentOS 6 operating system, from which I've chosen the version of Apache that comes with that particular revision of the OS. I've included an application package, in this case a simple web application, and then 3 Puppet modules that allow me to configure either the Apache configuration, certain base aspects regarding the operating system, or, for fun, the message of the day. Importantly, what I've done here is build a model of this system. I haven't actually built a system. I haven't modified any virtual machines. I haven't done anything of that nature. Now I can create a new build of this blueprint, what we call a compiled blueprint, that ensures that in addition to the pieces I chose, all the necessary components to run and deploy such a system are automatically included in the bill of materials, and all the right versions of the right pieces go together. This is one of the really big ideas in the rPath approach, is defining systems as complete models. Now that we've built a new version of the blueprint as a compiled blueprint, what we call a group, we have a time-stamped, version-controlled manifest of every single software component that would need to go on a system. So now we can use this to generate one or more images. I'm going to use this to generate an image targeted to the VMware infrastructure, which I happen to have a demonstration lab. I could equally use this to generate an image for Amazon, for Citrix, for physical deployment. Doesn't matter. The rPath Cloud Engine ensures that the right versions of all the right software components, including my Puppet modules and the Puppet runtime, are all included on those deployed systems automatically. Once my image is finished building, I'm able to deploy or launch that environment to any number of different targets that I may have configured. In this case, I'm going to pick my engineering VMware cluster. It's important to note that an image contains all the software needed to run that system on your choice of infrastructure. It does not rely on the availability of a Yum repo or any kind of infrastructure to ensure that that system will come up consistently with exactly the right versions of all the software ready to use. Now that my image has been deployed as a system, I can use another part of the rPath Cloud Engine to see that system here, up and running. And I can interrogate it and learn all sorts of things about it. Importantly, one of the things that I can do is I can find out about its configuration model. Here we see the various configuration parameters that the Puppet modules on this particular deployed system are exposing. So for example, if I wanted to change the port number, it would be as easy as changing the value, saving the configuration, and the configuration is changed. Let's take a look, in fact, at that system running as it is out there on my network. Pretty clearly, there's no Apache running on port 80, but if I go to port 8080, we'll see that, in fact, my application is being exposed by Apache on that port. And again, if I go back to the configuration tab, and I change that port, perhaps back to the typical default of port 80, I now refresh my interface, change it back to port 80, and we can see that my application is now available on that port instead. What's going on behind the scenes here is the rPath Cloud Engine is automatically pushing the appropriate configuration values to the system, and at runtime is exposing those configuration values as factor properties so that the Puppet manifests that I had packaged up and automatically included in this system can be invoked in order to do the appropriate configuration changes to the underlying Apache software. So here's a simple example of how through the user interface I'm able to take Puppet manifests, make them into reusable packaged modules, include them in systems, and then invoke them at runtime in an integrated, coordinated fashion. This is some of the things you can do with the rPath Cloud Engine in the new 6.5 release.